Hey, there we go. Welcome back to another Virtual Dev Intersection. My name is Jeff Fritz, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Carey Payette. Hey, Carey. Good to see you.
Jeff. Good to see you, too.
So we're both speaking. We're both going to be hosting and giving talks at Dev Intersection coming up here in Las Vegas this November. We hope you come. You have a chance to check out the event. It's going to be tremendous. Carey, you've been doing some work with IoT and AI recently, haven't you?
I have. So I'm doing quite a few things with IoT and AI. Actually, on the ML side, I'm still very much new. Like, I've used other people's models and deployed those to like edge devices, but I'm starting to really get the itch now to really dive into ML and AI, take advantage of some of the cognitive services, take advantage of what I know now as AutoML that would help me learn how to apply the correct algorithms essentially to get the best performing models.
Oh, very cool.
So a lot of learning going on, just the way I like it.
Very cool. Well, I mean, I think we both know there's a lot of stuff happening. Gosh, next week is .NET Conf. We've got big announcements and things happening from Microsoft over the next few months, and there's even things happening at Ignite. We're going to see a .NET Core release. I think I know just the right person to ask it for more information. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Let's bring on our guest. Here's Scott. There he is. Scott Hanselman. He's right up there. Hey, Scott. Good to see you.
Hi. How are you?
How's
it going?
This is the Brady Bunch view. Hey, how's it going? It's like we're all in the same room.
Exactly like that.
Exactly.
A bunch of people with good lighting, and I forgot my green screen.
We're life coders. What can I tell you?
It's all good.
I'm stuck on my Xbox with the Xbox hat. The chat room's still trying to run the Scott command from my channel.
Is that a command?
It's a command. There are 13 different Scotts that it will yell on my channel.
Oh no.
We found there's what's his name? Doc Brown in the Back to the Future series says "Great Scott" 10 different times, 10 different ways.
Oh yeah.
And of course we've got to grab Dr. Scott from of course the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Mm-hmm.
And the chance for Scott from the Frau. Right? From the Frau on Austin Powers.
Austin Powers.
Yeah. So we just make our way around that.
Can you throw us over on /Visual Studio? That's where I tweeted.
Sure. Let's get the Visual Studio channel saying hello for us as well. We have the power. We can make these things happen. It's amazing.
I don't want to set the people to the wrong place.
No. Let's do this.
I'm sure Jeff has a Stream Deck button for that.
Oh!
He has the power.
Somebody was telling me today I need to get the new Stream Deck. Have you seen the new one that has 32 buttons?
I do. I still don't think it's big enough for you.
It's all about the buttons. It's like screen size. You can't have enough screen real estate. Right? You always need more screen real estate. That's the question everybody wants. How do I get a higher resolution? 4K is just an excuse to get more screen space.
The thing is, though, I always end up having to switch it to 1080p for various and sundry reasons, like right now. So I've got 3 4K displays, but one of them's at 1080p for the purposes of what we're doing.
Yeah. There we go. So we should be seeing hosted over on the Visual Studio channel now.
There we are. Lovely. I've already had someone wonder where I must have put the wrong URL, but now we're in multiple places.
We are all over the place. So it's good to see you, sir. How's things? You've been busy.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, but it's a pretty good time. It's very much one of those moments though where everything's in beta. So I'm looking at my list of things we could talk about, and I think literally everything here is like on a release candidate or a beta.
Well, and right,
experimental.
The latest betas that are about to convert Go RTM right next week. .NET Core 3.
.NET Core 3 should be, what is it, Monday?
Monday, yeah, right?
Monday, yep. I have to drive up to Seattle Sunday afternoon, so that's coming soon. But I haven't gone and updated all my different things. But I've also got other stuff that's just, on the edge, no pun intended, whether it be WSL2 or the open source Windows terminal, or we just released a new font. All of these things are in like permanent 0.9 version until otherwise decided. But also Windows. I'm also running a daily build of Windows. So
living on the edge.
Oh yeah, our boss always complains to me that I'm doing that. He doesn't run betas.
But I mean, isn't Gmail still in beta? Carey, is it still in beta
for 20 years?
Right. I mean, there is no deadline that says you must be released.
Perpetual beta.
Perpetual.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is, Carey. We're in perpetual beta right now, and I'm starting to feel like my life is. But frankly, as we are getting towards like that 0.9 for all of these things, I'm using them every day. Everything feels pretty good. So it's not like it's crashy beta time. It's kind of a nice time to be in perpetual beta.
Yeah. Definitely. Very good time because, right, the previews, you can go through, you can test. Gosh, I was just testing something last night. Carey, with our friend Fierce Kittens, she's been working on a Windows Forms application that she ported from .NET 4.6 to the new .NET Core 3. And it didn't work with all the resource files she had in old-style Windows Forms.
Okay, how did she fix it?
So we raised an issue to the Windows Forms team. It's good to know people, and they said, oh yeah, we've identified this. It's an issue that it actually broke in the September preview 9, and they have a fix that they just issued for it's on the nightly builds on an RC2. And this is the advantage of open source, right? There's nightly builds we can check out and try. So we were able to confirm we've got a fix, and we're able to deploy. Yeah.
Hey, I have a Twitch question.
Sure.
You and Carey look amazing. I have a 4K camera.
Yes.
And I don't look amazing.
Something's out of focus there, it looks like.
Is that what's going on? Am I out of focus?
It looks just out of focus.
In life?
It was nice and sharp just a minute ago.
Am I in focus in life? What's happening?
So there's also, Skype will step down your resolution if it doesn't have good network.
Well, that is scandalous.
So I don't see you at full screen coming through on your camera.
What does that mean? You don't have me on full screen.
There's a black box around you. So
according to this, I'm rock solid 4K. And I'll turn it on and off again.
Sure.
Just to be sassy. But it's definitely...
He's Mr. Skype Bar 4K. Now.
Yeah. I don't know. That's super weird. I put all this money into this camera, man.
I know.
At your urging. Is it because I'm sharing my screen?
Might try stopping the screen share and see what happens. Oh, that changed. Oh, that changed immediately. Yeah.
That's the issue. Okay.
Wow.
So this is another thing to file away. Hello.
To file away with our friends. Yes.
All right. So it looks like Skype is prioritizing the 1080p side.
Yeah.
Right, cool. So, when you want me to share my screen, I'll just become pixely, Scott.
It'll be off to the side, and people will be focused on the screen.
Cool. So if you don't mind,
please.
And again, I know you probably have a plan or an agenda or whatever.
That's us.
You mentioned WinForms, and you mentioned porting things. I recently blogged about a PlayStation emulator in C#.
Yes, okay. Let's talk. That is crazy. Okay.
If you don't mind, can we look at it and play with it, because it's actually Windows Forms.
It is? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Let's say hello to some of the folks in the chat room, and then as we're getting that set up over there.
Right, cool.
Gmail went out of beta in 2009, they found. CK Darby says on 7th of July, 2009. Money can't buy beauty, says Sinad Meskin. We'll see that. Look at that. That's... I don't know if they're talking about me, Carey, or Scott. Lino Tadros is here. Hello, Lino. Good to see you.
Lino.
Which chat room am I supposed to be in?
I'm in the DEVintersection chat room.
All right, cool.
Let's see here. There he is. And
All right, cool.
I should be able to do this. /mod. There we go. And now you have a sword. Fantastic. All right, so you have that set up. Let's cut over to your machine. Look at this. Through the magic of Skype, everybody can see Scott's desktop.
But I didn't share my desktop. Did I?
Yes, you did.
I see your desktop.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
I can. The little tents there in the corner.
Really? I thought but I'm still in high res though.
Try.
Maybe it's the order of operations.
No, you're looking at my desktop back in time.
Back in time.
That's my desk. There it is.
There it is.
Now,
And
yeah, so you were looking at a moment where my desktop used to look like that.
And we didn't lose resolution on your picture.
I'm scandalized. This is very confusing.
But amazing.
Notepad. Okay, cool. So can I talk to you about this, and maybe you can help me, because I wanted to actually do a test. So let me tell you what happened.
Okay.
So blah 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 browser. Okay, this is the Edgium, by the way. Are we all using Edgium?
So
Yes,
okay.
I am.
Edgium. I'm not sure I like that term, right? But this is the
You don't
edge.
like Edgium?
I don't know. It's the edge that has the Chrome rendering, right?
Right. It's new edge. It's on the edge. It's
It's
Chromium.
fast.
It is fast. It's lovely. So I just call it Edgium. I know that it's not the official thing, and I can't tell the team that I call it that, but I just like it.
It's better than the alternative of Credge.
Yeah, that's not a thing. Don't ever say that again.
Don't do
See,
it.
here you go. And it updates all the time. So let's go ahead and restart. And now it's updated Edgium.
Fantastic. Look at that. It's an update.
Boom. Okay, cool. So I just got an update. I'm on Canary Edition. You can go and get this at Edge Insider.
Now, have you found? Okay, so there's different trains, right? Canary.
Yeah. So there's 3 channels.
Yeah.
There's what I call non-technical parent channel, where when you go over to the family's house for Thanksgiving and you sneak it onto their machine, they're just going to click on the E. So put them on the beta channel. They'll get a new one every 6 weeks. Then you got the dev channel, which is I don't really want to mess with it, but I really want the new hotness.
Yeah.
You get it every week. And then I'm doing Canary, which every once in a while something incredibly weird will happen in Canary, because they're literally taking updates all the time. Let me go ahead and turn off my notifications here. Notifications off. Okay. Canary has some really interesting bugs. Like one time, everything was upside down. Just like stuff like that. And it's because they're taking things downstream. But the thing that's most important about the Edgium stuff is, look, Windows 7, Windows 8. If you are stuck on an older version of Windows, they've made you an Edge for the older Windows.
There's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, whatever you're doing, don't run Internet Explorer if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
The other nice thing about Edgium that I'm loving is, you see my face over here. See, it's got Scott and Scott at Work.
I need to get in on this because
Look at this, so good.
So
this one here, look, hang on.
Yeah.
Look. I have a totally different home page for work.
I would love to see. Have you tried the Peacock plugin? Carey, do you know the Peacock plugin for Visual Studio Code?
I do not.
So it's this plugin that our friend John Papa wrote that he started it. I think some other folks have picked up on it, but it changes the border and the colors for Visual Studio Code so that you know the different environments you're in. I'd love to see something similar for Edge, because I don't know if you know this, Scott.
Yep.
I have 26 different Twitch accounts.
I suspected as much, but I have had that problem as well, because this is my headshot with me with hair, and this is my other headshot with me with hair. And so, I mean, I could go and make like old Scott at work and young and vibrant Scott at home, but this is a problematic thing. I need a way to indicate that I'm at work. Yeah, so I feel like if it changed color, it would help.
Yes, Gralden, I have 26 profiles on Twitch, different channels that I manage, and I manage a lot of different channels for a number of different folks. So between Visual Studio channel, this channel, of course, my channel. Carey doesn't know it, but I manage her channel. No, I don't. I don't do
Oh,
that.
here's a good idea. Rambling Geek said use different colored backgrounds for the profile image. That's right.
Oh,
I need to make a little background here and blur the background.
okay.
All right.
That could
So
be
let
a
me tell
thing.
you about this PlayStation emulator, okay? And I want you to help me test something
Okay.
because I've been ordered by Reddit to do something.
Okay,
And,
so let's
go
just
ahead.
back up a second. You said this is Windows Forms with C
Okay.
Sharp.
So here's the deal. And please, of course, interrupt Carey and Jeff if I ramble, because I tend to ramble. But the deal was I was on an emulator forum and someone was saying, oh, yeah, C Sharp is trash. You can't run emulators in C Sharp. And everyone knows that's silly because there's been emulators in C Sharp for many, many years. And I actually wrote a tiny operating system, tiny OS C Sharp Hanselman
Okay.
in 2000, which would be probably 13 years ago for my undergraduate. And it
Wow.
is, yeah, really. So look, here's you can actually download the operating system, and even more scandalously, this is from 17 years ago, a PowerPoint that I presented at TechEd Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur.
Oh my gosh.
Look at that.
Hang on. Let me. Oh man. Hang
Shout
on.
out to our Malaysian friends.
Nice.
Right.
And what it is it's an abstract virtual machine in C Sharp. Let me move it over here. So
no, I'll just turn off the cameras there.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you, sir. So it talks about like, all right, this is the assembly language that they gave us, and then I would put that into a collection instruction. This is like an instruction set, right?
Okay.
Basically opcodes. So there were 32 opcodes and a series of registers, and I would put those into a program and create a process. And I literally did a mapping between this virtual CPU and virtual processes. So the whole point of this operating system class was to build an operating system and then run it. And then I had configuration, so I could say how much memory it had. I could put in physical memory or virtual memory. So here's an example of what the assembly language looks like. So move the number 0 into R4. Then this is an opcode on the side here. Lower the priority, move 20 in, print it, back up 1, and then loop.
Okay.
So then I made a bunch of apps and programs and stuff, and then I also had to manage virtual memory. So this is all good fun. This is all operating system class. And the super fun part was I could print out memory and then watch it become fragmented as I would allocate big amounts of memory, and then it would be reclaimed, and then you'd go and ask for more, and it'd be like, okay, I can give you 4 bytes here and 8 down here and 12 over here, and it gets quite messy.
Sure.
Memory fragmentation is a thing. All right. I'm old. That's what the point there is. Okay. PlayStation, this guy, very, very nice guy, and he's an intern looking for a job, who made Project PSX, and he's made other emulators. He's actually made a Java Chip 8, he made a C Sharp Intel 80, and he made a Game Boy emulator. And what's so wonderful about this is he's like, well, because I wanted to learn. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah. Right? That's
okay. Yeah. Isn't that
very cool? Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So he wanted a way to print this out to the screen, and I'll run it and show you. And right now he's doing WinForms, and he says here it's very thin dependency, very, very thin dependency. So he wishes he could make it multi-platform, and I bet you we could do that with something like Apollonia or something else. Fast forward over to the thing.
Yeah, the new thing.
Okay, Project PSS. Here is Visual Studio coming up on the wrong screen.
And I know Carey's getting ideas here because I've seen some of the things she's been writing with the IoT devices on her stream. I know we're going to see a PlayStation running on something over there.
All the toys.
Oh yeah. You like emulators, Carey?
I like emulators. I just basically love making things work on small devices.
See, this is something where it's very portable code. This could run potentially on like a Raspberry Pi, something that we can get across platform. Okay, so here, GitHub Project PSS. I've tried something. So let me show you the first one. So here's the project here. And this is very early. So to be clear, this is very, very early. So early that we're hard coding file names. Okay, so for example, where's my file name here? Was it a BIOS? Was it a .bin file? Or what did I call it? There's a hard-coded. Oh, here's the CD. So this is a CD. So I hard-coded it to be a binary image of a CD, of an actual, like an ISO file, but more of a bin.
Sure.
So in this folder for Project CSS, it should be PSX, in bin debug, there is a, bin really? No, bin, yeah, bin, there it is. There's a game. This
Okay.
This is a game I own. I have a physical copy in the other room. I collect retro games and stuff, and I go to Retro Game Trader. So there's a bin of a game I own.
Okay.
And then here is a dump of the PlayStation BIOS. It's only 512K.
Wow.
So if I search for this, Control-Shift-F, find, I think it's in bus. There it is. So there's the hard-coded BIOS. Now, in the future, of course, you'll want to be able to drag the ROMs in over the top of some URL thing.
Sure.
So look, so he starts up. Let's look at our. So I go around here looking for a main, and I find this. What? And I say, look at that.
All it's doing?
It's Windows Forms. Okay. So I'm like, all right, well, that's clever. Let's go and look at this. He boots up the display. It's 640 by 480. Now he has done two things here. He's got display and he's got double buffered panel, because he's doing all the work off screen, right? And then he blitz it into the thing. But check this out.
Well, wait, hang on. For those that aren't familiar, right? I mean, we've hit a couple of computer science things. What do you mean blitz it?
Oh, okay. I apologize. So, and then correct me if I'm wrong here, Carey, if I get this wrong. But basically, you could draw directly to the screen, but depending on how fast you draw to the screen, you could be drawing and see the drawing, see the pixels happen. So typically what you do is you make a second buffer off screen. That way no one can see the drawing. You prep it, you get the frame ready, and then you go and you bit-to-bit copy, and you go bloop, and then you do that 30 times or 60 times a second, as fast as you possibly can.
Okay.
That way you don't see visual tearing and kind of gross stuff. You don't see the actual sausage getting made. You prep the panel and then you pop the panel back. And what he's done here with double buffered panel is it is literally a Windows Forms panel. Okay. And what's cool about this is he's literally just, and I'm saying the word literally too much, he is using it as a bitmap that can stretch. And then here he's saying all the painting happens in WM Paint. So he's basically dropped down to the lowest level of Windows. He's taking advantage of the fact that Windows Forms is a light layer on top of Win32.
Yeah.
And he just has 6 lines of code for that. He makes this double buffered panel called screen. And then if we go a little bit farther down, you can see he says, all right, let's go and take the bitmap inside of display, and then we'll just show it as a background image. This is so clever.
So he
makes the bitmap in memory, and he just points it to the background image of the window itself, and Windows Forms does the rest.
So he's using Windows Forms just as a picture frame into the actual game.
A picture frame. He didn't even put a panel or an image on the thing. He's just doing the background image.
Yeah.
Of the panel
of the form.
That's very clever. Very clever. Okay, so check this out. I love this. Power on. So power on goes and makes this long-running task. And what he's got is a CPU and a bus. He's also got his CD-ROM and DMA and all that kind of stuff. It's very kind of high-level, low-level code. Isn't that cool? Let me run it because I've been talking too much.
No, it's Carey, I think it's interesting that wrapping and putting these nicknames, right, the variable names in front of things that were physical things in the past.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Now, a couple of things to point out here. I've uncommented some stuff to get this here. You see the memory copies?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're actually seeing that in the old console, because he's just doing that as a
log,
as a console.writeLine.
Okay.
Okay. Now I want to point out that we are at 60 frames a second, and the CPU speed is unbounded, so it's running basically as fast as my CPU can do it. And if we go and we can maybe turn this off and get rid of that
The logging.
Get rid of that logging. If I can remember where it was. Let me go back to his source code, project PSX.
Yeah.
I believe he said, this is the part where you read the manual, blah, blah, blah. He said, using the emulator. I'm looking for the part where he says to go and look at logging. Uncomment out bios.verbose and TTY in the CPU main loop. All right, so let's go to the CPU and we'll say dot verbose. Okay, so I'm going to comment that back in, and I'm going to comment back in TTY. So I've turned off this, turned off that. Okay.
It's interesting. If we just take a second, he put, right, look at that. He put debug there in comments on line 99.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so this gentleman is, right, instead of using the C# constructs for if debug.
Right, but this is the thing that's really interesting, is that if you look at C# and you come at it as a new language,
yeah,
not idiomatically, this all makes sense. This smells and feels like C code.
Yes.
He's writing C# like C code. And it's worth pointing out, in order to do that, look what he had to do. System.runtime.compilerservices.unsafe. Are you able to see that, or is that coming out?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're good.
I was worried. It looks like it's coming out a little bit blurry. So unsafe is a way in C# and .NET for you to say, trust me, I know what I'm doing. Okay, so look at this. It's unsafe. If you want to do anything with pointers, you basically say, you know, there be dragons here, right? Bad stuff could happen here. And then you're saying everything in here could be unsafe, and, you know, you're warning the compiler that all bets are off. And then suddenly you're looking at pointers in C#. Now he called me, or he talked to me on LinkedIn, and he said, let me go to my LinkedIn here. Very, very nice gentleman. I'll get his name in a moment here. Pedro Cortez. He said, oh yeah, and I think he actually put the response on my blog. So let me go over there. He was saying that maybe span of T. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember where he said that, but he basically said, oh, maybe he said it on his blog, on the project. Nope, I can't remember. Maybe I talked to him on Twitter. The point is, there's a bunch of new stuff in C# and in .NET coming, like, you know, span of T and what was it called? SIMD?
SIMD, yes.
What is SIMD?
It lets you do parallel threading on the processor. So it's simultaneous, single instruction, multiple data.
Okay, so he's excited about that, and that support. So if we go SIMD instructions C#, right? There's work there where you could potentially drop down and do numerics and all kinds of low-level stuff. Oh, that would make his thing faster.
Our friends at Intel are gaga about all the things they can do with their SIMD instruction set. Really great stuff.
So look here, we got about 100. So now I've turned off debugging. We've got about 100, and let's see if where this tops out. 130. I saw 140, 150. See if I can make this go fast. So I'm looking at 150 frames a second, or 100 stable frames a second. All right.
And that's just going off your right. That's just going off your processor. He hasn't even hit the GPU yet.
Yeah, he's got no GPU anything here, right?
Yeah.
So easily 100. Okay. So then I wanted to look at it, and I said properties. It's .NET Framework 4.7.2. Okay.
Let's go core, man.
Yeah, exactly, right? So that's exactly what I wanted to do, right? So this is release. I wanted to point out release versus debug speed. We should look at that. And I had to go and say, of course, allow unsafe code. And then we are making a 64-bit release of this, so I can go and confirm those things as well. So let's just go back to debug real quick. This is a 32-bit platform, and it's unsafe, but it is in debug mode. Now, I'm not debugging It is a debug build, though. So somebody keep track of the frames per second for me. So what do we got here? About 30 frames a second.
Chat room, keep tabs on that for us, will you?
Okay. So this is important to point out here. It's running about half speed. We are not debugging, but we are not optimized. And this is a good reminder that if you're releasing your product or your website or whatever in debug mode, you're doing yourself very likely a disservice when it comes to speed. So this is almost a third of the speed. Pretty bad. Okay. Yeah. Now, let's go back to release. I'm going to go ahead and say 32-bit, try that in release mode. See if that makes a difference. Because, you know, the PlayStation isn't anywhere near a 64-bit machine. Maybe we don't even need that level of complexity.
Sure.
I don't see any benefits to doing it that way. Oops. I gotta close all these.
Sure. If you're not allocating 64-bit integers,
we're not doing anything that needs it. Nothing at all. Okay, so now we're on a release build, 32-bit. Say that again.
I saw 160.
150. So again, there's 150. Went from 30 frames a second to 150. And I'm sure, and to be clear, we could probably get this into the 300s if we really tried, right? Like, this is not a complicated thing. How do I start? How do I make the little man go? Here we go. So that feels definitely snappier. But now we're in the game. We're back to a stable 100. So, you know, opening it up, it came into 150. Now, this is 472. This is my strategy. You can tell me if this is dumb, Carey, but I just decided to go and say, file new project, new Windows Forms app, and then I just copied the stuff over in. You know what I mean? Like I literally was just like, and I just copied all this crap into my own project, right? So I'm just going to go and say remove, and now I'm on a Windows Forms app, which is with the new CS Proj. So you can see here a couple of things. This is a Windows Core 3. Windows Desktop SDK. Target framework is 3, uses Windows Forms. And I hope that's not, are people able to see this? Are we seeing this? It's crystal clear? And the chat room's not having a problem with it because it's blurry on my side.
That looks great.
The transmission back, the reflection that I'm giving you so you can see what's being transmitted, has a little bit of signal degradation.
Okay, but it's adequate though. Okay.
Oh yeah. Cool. Yep.
All right. So in here, this is basically just a much simpler project file.
Yeah, right? All the GUID nonsense is gone.
This took like 10 minutes. Okay, so now let's go back here. Properties, prefer 32-bit, optimize code, unsafe code, suppressing a couple of specific warnings, and then we've got release mode. So this is on Core 3. Now, I don't expect that this is going to get 1,000 times faster because I don't know, right? It's very specialized, but it might be interesting to see. The fact that it simply works, I think, is the more important aspect of things, rather than hoping it will get somehow more fast. The fact that it's just worked instantly. So now it's portable, right? Okay, so here, 100 frames a second. So this does not have, this is not 150.
No.
It's getting to about 100. So that's interesting. The question would be then, did I miss anything? Yeah, so it looks like 80 frames a second here.
But
so we're on Core. So this would probably be something about the way it's blitting that it's not faster. I also want to figure out if the difference between the blitting speed and the CPU speed, because Core 3 as a runtime should be faster, but I don't know how the Windows Forms team is blitting it to the screen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's a question from the chat room from Sanad Meskin. Did you comment out the logging calls in this version of the project?
Oh, that's a very good question.
So Rambling Geeks keeping track of the frames per second here.
Yeah.
And Hugo says adequate. You mean adequate? Like tacos are an adequate food?
Oh, I did not comment them out, so Dankeschön.
We might have something. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your help. The call from Sinad Meskin. Yeah. Oh, a global lock.
Forgot. Oh, there's lots of reasons. Believe me, there's a million things. Again, this is a very nice gentleman's pet project. It's not optimized by any means. Yeah. Hang on, I'm taking insulin here. I forgot to take it for breakfast. Okay, try again. Yeah, we're cooking with gas. 142, 168, 193.
Go, go, go.
Yeah, we bumped up against 193. 173. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So let's get into the game and see what happens.
Now we're talking. Now we're cooking with gas. 157. 105. 100. 152.
Yeah, much better.
Quickest life.
Yeah. So it looks like it is at least as fast or faster, because it appears to me like it's getting a couple of moments where it goes up into the. It's 100% CPU bound, to be clear. There's no GPU thing going on here. So yeah, easily 120, 150. I did not see us popping up into the 150s and 140s when we were doing this before. Did anyone else?
The comment
178.
Release on 32-bit, we were at 150, says Rambling Geek.
Okay, let's go. We can, yeah. So that's pretty slick, though. And let's actually try. Let's try 64. See if that makes a difference. I don't think it will. I think it'll be slower.
Yeah. And Hugo goes on to ask, what about making it into a single executable with the new .NET Core 3 capabilities?
Let's do that. Okay, cool. So
that was another blog post you had recently.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a really good point. So let's talk about this. So I went over to Reddit. Apologies to those who do not enjoy the Reddit. I recognize it's not for everyone.
Carey, I struggle with Reddit. I don't know how to keep up with Reddit. I try and get in there and it's like
it's a little confusing.
Yeah, I don't think it's a point that you have to keep up. I think it's just if you feel like getting some info, just go and consume at will.
View all comments. Okay, so I posted on Reddit emulating a PlayStation, and I put my blog post in there. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And let's cover up the ads.
And here's somebody 3 days ago. Was there a significant FPS boost after the migration? I am also interested to know this. What do we want to tell them?
I think Rambling Geek tracked that. Right, so 173, 152.
Yeah. And release mode with debug stuff commented out, and we did 173 to
152.
152 FPS. Well, on Net Core 3.0, while Net 472 was more in the range of what? I want to make sure we're being honest here.
I wrote down 150.
On the high end?
Well, that was at the menu. In-game, Rambling Geek says was 100.
In-game, yeah.
I thought we bumped up against 120 as well. So while it was inconsistent, depends on where you are in Crash Bandicoot, it is clearly 20%-ish faster with this one emulator and this one game. So yes, faster. That's consistent with what we see with most WinForms upgrades. I mean, it's just a better CLR.
Yep.
Okay. This person here was sad because it said it got downvoted into oblivion.
Isn't that just the way that Reddit works?
Oh, here's the original post. The original post was, I find their final note, that's me, I'm there. It's worth pointing, I said, it's worth pointing out it took me 15 minutes to port this to .NET Core. I'll do a benchmark and see if it's faster. And then this person said, this is misleading. I don't understand why they added this note. So I took that as a confusion on the part of this kind person, that perhaps they did not understand how .NET Core 3 works. And I think this is a thing that's worth pointing out, right? .NET Core 3 is this runtime. Yes, you can run it on Linux, but at some point, if you thunk down into C code, at some point you become operating system specific, right?
Yeah.
If you do a DLL import or a P invoke and you call a Linux API, your cross-platform app just became a non-cross-platform app, right? So like Carey, you were saying you're doing IoT, right? As soon as you call for GPIO pins, now you're on a Raspberry Pi, and your portable app instantly became not yeah. So this is the part that's hard, like, not to like say being me is hard or anything, but this gentleman or this woman went and changed their note here and said, I'm not sure why my comment is the only one that got downvoted. You have a fan base here. Well, I mean, like, no, I mean, I don't just go and send the minions out to downvote people into oblivion. It just, the statement was that porting it to .NET Core 3 was misleading. Why would I add that note? The reason is it is faster, it is better, it is a superior, and it is the future for the CLR, and it could be made portable, and making it portable makes the move compelling.
Yes.
That's why I added the note. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I thought it was a little bit interesting that this was this conversation happened. I'm not quite sure what was going on there. Lots of great conversations about building game engines. The person here linked us to Crazy Core, which is a cross-platform, an almost 3-year-old 3D video game written in .NET Core that runs on a custom game engine, which is interesting, right? So this is the code assets, and then the game engine is this general purpose game engine on Core that's quite old, but there's no reason that this couldn't be used, and it uses Direct3D. And this is really important because it speaks to that point of you don't want to necessarily use the lowest common denominator, which is what our PSX thing is doing, and just split bitmaps onto the screen. You might want to take advantage of platform-specific stuff. So in this case, hey, you got Direct3D, I'll use that. Oh, you don't have Direct3D, I'll use OpenGL, right? So if we went and looked at that and found out like how it boots up, how does the engine boot up? Here's like the launcher, here's the program. At some point in here, this engine, this game engine, is going to go and need to figure out, am I on? There we go, boom, right there. See, didn't take long. Hey, what's my graphics preference? Which provider I'm going to use? I'll go and get that. Otherwise, I'll use the default. And look at that. Look at this right here. Am I on Windows?
Yeah, look at that.
Then I'll use a dedicated thread Windows. Otherwise, I'll use the same thread Windows. And then I'll boot up the graphics system with that graphics provider or another one. And then if we go look at graphics providers, I'm assuming it's going to be out here somewhere, an engine, I'm guessing here. Graphics. There you go, graphics preferences provider. One of these, where's the providers? There's got to be in here somewhere specific ones that are, let's think about this. Where is it, friends? You understand what I'm trying to do? Graphics provider. What's the name of a provider though? That's the one. Graphics backend preference. There we go. Ah, there it is, right there. That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
See? So you have no preference. We'll do software rendering. If you have a preference or you have a thing that's available on a certain operating system, we'll use OpenGL or we'll use Direct3D.
So there was a.
So this is good.
there was a question in one of those posts. Hey, wouldn't it be interesting to see this run on Mono or even WebAssembly? So where it's copying into that web form, there I gave it away, into that WinForms panel, you could do that similar type of bit blitting into any type of image that's just an array of bytes that you're painting on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of science around the best way to get bits on the screen as fast as possible, and depending on also whether or not you're trying to do software-based 3D modeling, like Crash Bandicoot is quasi 3D. Like, how are they creating that scene? There's also illusions of 3D versus actual 3D. So that one engine that we just looked at is an actual 3D engine. Crash, I think, is arguably pseudo 3D. It simulates being 3D, but it's not really 3D.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, so back to the original question. If I go right-click Publish and go Folder, and then say Create Profile,
right,
and then click on any of these pencils, we could go and say Release Mode x86, not framework dependent, meaning don't have the dependency on the framework, but instead do it self-contained on Windows. Okay. Can we then hit Publish? While that's happening, I'm going to right-click, Open Folder in Explorer, Bin, Release.
So
there it is.
Yeah, there it comes. And then it goes and it copies the framework locally. So we have our own private build of the .NET framework. Now, this is interesting because it looks like a lot, but if you right-click and hit Properties, while it is a lot of files, 500, which we can complain about later, it's actually only 136 megs.
If someone's going to complain about 500 files, they haven't used Node recently.
Well, touche.
Okay.
But yeah, in the future, we'll have single executable trimming. I could go and add that now. It's available. It's just not well tested. But then it actually gets zipped up, put into a file, and then you'd have like PlayStation.exe. It would then unzip into a temporary file and then run.
Yeah.
But then I would have to keep track of these different binaries. So for example, if I run this right now, I suspect it will fail because either it won't have the binary or it won't be able to find the game. Because remember that this has just been put together for testing. Where's the executable? He doesn't. He probably goes and says like .. / or something, looking for file. Yeah, so it just crashed. Okay, so let's do this. So we just went down one. Let's move the binary. That's the BIOS.
Okay.
And the game. Where did it go?
While you're looking for that, go ahead.
Wasn't the game in a bin?
Thank you.
Nothing else matters comments in the chat room. Scott, interesting project. I'm assigning some of my interns to watch this Dev Intersection video. The reason is to show open thinking and also Core 3.0. Carey, Jeff, and Scott, nice Dev Intersection. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Nothing else matters.
Open thinking. Implying that this is problem solving?
Problem solving, right? Thinking outside the box, exploring different ways to do things. Yeah.
Isn't that nice? No, that's very kind. Thank you. This is an example of not knowing what you're doing, but still figuring it out.
Well,
there you go. So now, and again, like to Carey's point, I was looking in the wrong folder, so I brought it down a folder because it was in bin. So now we are running the same thing, except it's running entirely self-contained. So now I could take this folder here, to be clear, zip it up, and stick it on a USB key, and now we have a portable PlayStation emulator that would run, again, portable. How portable? Going back to what we talked about earlier, portable to the point of running on Windows, and so it might run on Windows 7, but it would not run on Linux.
Right. You don't need a big install to put this down.
Right. But to the gentleman's point who made the application, and I'm going to make sure I don't forget his name and get that wrong because you should hire him. He's looking for internships and he's on LinkedIn. Pedro Cortés, estudiante en Instituto Verde Cataluña. He has just kind of spiked this thing together. And if we look at the window, it's display, which is very abstract. Look at this here. Display is just an abstract class with a bitmap. So you just need to make sure system.bitmap works on the platform, and it does on Linux.
Yeah.
GC handle, these are all just standard, garbage collection handle, standard things. Look at this. Look at that. The pixels, they're just bits. Just bits hanging out, just chilling. Okay. All you would need to port if you were to bring this to another platform that I can see, and again, this is coming from my own ignorance, is the double buffered panel, which would be a thing that contains a bitmap. Let's go and look at the definition of that. And now I'm not in source code now. See where it says panel from metadata? This is not source code.
Okay.
You would need a panel that, again, this is the hierarchy of Windows forms. Scrollable control, that goes down to control. And I believe at control you hit background. There's like background image. Background. So you'd basically need to get something that could blit a bitmap. You need to go, how do I get from a system.bitmap to a stretched square on a thing? So if we wanted to port this, we could do it now or later, to like Avalonia, which is a cross-platform windowing environment.
Yeah.
Avalonia GitHub. Right? We would basically just need to figure out how to get that system.bitmap onto something. It doesn't really matter what. The second thing we need to do is input. So he's getting free input here.
Oh, from the key handlers and mouse handler from.
So let's figure out where that is, right? Keyboard. Anyone going to guess where the keyboard handler is? Key down, maybe?
Well, I thought
Carey, any suggestions? Nope. There you go. Window.keydown. See, that didn't take long. So he's got a controller class. Look at this. I love reading to-dos of other people who are smart developers. And I also really appreciate Pedro's modesty, because he's been very kind online saying, this is a very simple code. I'm like, oh my God, this is very simple. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
This would be my life's work. It's very, very nice stuff. It's a fun, clean, somewhat naive implementation of a CPU, but it freaking works, and you got to give the man credit for that. Revamp all this, but he needs to study on how to handle form events, right? So here's that window. That's his abstract one. And then look, handle key down, joypad key down. And what he's doing is looking at Windows Forms key modifiers. Those are his keys. And when the key event args, which is again Windows Form specific, does that, he goes and he sets his internal controller to indicate that if someone's pressing space, they're really pressing this button on a PlayStation. Make sense?
Yeah.
And then he goes and he does a little anding there, and then this is indicating a chord where these buttons could have multiple buttons pressed down at the same time. I assume that there's some kind of a limitation on a PlayStation where you can't hold down more than one or two at a time. And it's interesting that he breaks rather than falls through. I wonder if that's required. So if you moved it to Avalonia or something else, you'd need to figure out how to get from some key up, key down into a buttons. Is that a short, a U short, an unsigned short?
Yeah.
Make sense?
So because the abstract
provider based. Sorry.
Yeah, you're right. I was going to say, go ahead, Carey.
Yeah, this could totally be done provider based.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So you could leave it as it is on Windows. It works great on Windows. And then have a window provider and a joypad provider or something like that, and hide it all away. That's a very good point. The other thing I thought was interesting was the idea that he literally is, I love this. This class is pretty broken. Again, it works. But he is pointing out that many of the games don't work because PlayStation games lay out in the old days, and particularly Crash Bandicoot, they would literally pack the data specifically on the CD-ROM, idealized to make it fit. Crash Bandicoot, I believe, legendarily fit with 1 byte to spare.
Oh man.
And they had to run the packer multiple times, like playing Tetris, to make sure that they could fit every byte to work. So if you go and search for Crash Bandicoot Quora CD-ROM, I don't actually keep URLs in my head. I keep queries that can get me back to URLs in my head. I have this is like my curse.
History is my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I always have to go back. What did I go on earlier? Find my way back.
So here's how Naughty Dog, which is the name of the company, made Crash Bandicoot fit into 2 megs of RAM. That's one really interesting conversation about all the decisions that they had to make. And then if you go into here, we can talk about one of the employee number 1 of Naughty Dog. Okay.
Can you do the chat room a favor, Scott? That last page that you're on, can you copy those links and drop them in the chat room so they can check them out later?
Yes, sir.
Oh, Janescu, that's a great idea.
What is that?
Crash Bandicoot for Blazor.
Well, so let's talk about that for a second. It might sound fun.
Look at Carey. Look at that smile. Yeah, that's a great idea.
It might be a phenomenally bad idea. Now, it's one of those things where, yes, you could probably do it. But remember how Blazor works, right? You're looking at a runtime inside a runtime on top of a runtime in a process on a virtual machine on Windows or whatever, right? So I would guess it would drop in speed probably by at least double, if not triple. But it would be fun to try. And again, how would you plug in the blitting, right? You just plug it in, to Carey's point, to a provider model, and it would blit to the canvas. Yeah. Rather than to the window. So this part here was the part that was interesting. Some levels barely fit, so his packer would try to find the best packing, and the problem was it was random at some point, and it was not deterministic. He could not get the same result over and over again. So then he would go and you'd like have change a code for a turtle, and then you change one thing, like a level designer moves something in a level, and now you could never find that perfect pack again. It's kind of like Christmas gift wrapping. You know what I mean? So here you go. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. I misspoke. 4 bytes to spare.
Wow.
So it was 2 megabytes of RAM, and they missed it they got it by 4 bytes. And this is also a really good thing from a computer science, or for our friends who are looking at talking about the interns. Byte alignment is something you should go and learn about. Like, if you're doing things like this in constrained systems, the idea that everything comes nice and clean up to a byte is great, but if you suddenly get shifted off by 1, then the whole thing falls apart, and you end up getting a very unaligned and fragmented chunk of memory there. So back to here, the CD-ROM he says is kind of naive or needs to work on its timings. I don't understand this code, but what's interesting about it is that you have to be able to simulate a thing that isn't there, right? So he has to actually keep track of things like, is this a double speed CD-ROM? Is anyone who's super old? Carey, you're not this old, are you? I didn't think so. Nobody is, only me. So back in the day when you were probably not born, double speed CD-ROM, that was the most exciting thing we would save up for. So it turns out standard CD-ROMs would go and transfer stuff at 150K a second. Now, here's the thing, though. On a PlayStation, it was actually 75K. And double speed was actually single speed. And then a double speed you could buy, and we would actually go, look at this, the minimum one you should consider these days being 1993. So everyone on the block was saving up for a double speed CD-ROM, right? Yeah. And we were literally keeping track of RPM speed. So 8x CD-ROMs and 16x CD-ROMs would come out, and I think the fastest one was a 16x. Maybe there was a 32x CD-ROM.
I thought I saw a 52 at one point.
Oh yeah, I remember that. There was a 52x speed CD-ROM. You're right, and that was where you can like hear the thing going. Whoa!
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah. There you go. Now look at this. Writing a DVD is a megabyte or meg and a half a second. 9 times faster than writing a CD.
So the 52X is what, 6 times faster than writing a DVD?
Yeah, but look at this. At speeds higher than 56X, you risk shattering the disk.
This was a Mythbusters, wasn't it?
True story. There was a time where you'd spin the CD up and you'd push the open button, and cheap CD-ROMs would actually open and the disc would just fire off and decapitate anyone in the room. Just
stop it.
True story, except for the decapitation. But they'd spin out and kill your family.
Is this why we needed caddies for our CDs?
I don't know.
Remember that back in the day? I
used it as a cup holder. Anyway, he's keeping track of double speed is why I ran off. I'm an idiot. I apologize for wasting your time.
Wait, hang on. I've got just the right clip here. So Carey knows.
Look at all these console.write lines here he's got. So clever. Just so clever.
I'm sorry. We were distracted.
Yeah, I don't know if this is adding value or not.
That's a different
cool.
Yeah. I wonder what are the original specs of the processor in the PlayStation?
That is a very good question, my friend. Let's go and see. So what I did when I went up to his GitHub here, and make sure you go give the gentleman a star. At the very bottom, he said, I used Martin Korth's documentation about the hardware. Now, I tried to read this, but I found it somewhat dense. But let's see if we can answer your questions. We could also go and Google it, but it might be more fun. So this person has gone through like specifications, like step by step by step. So wow. CPU specs, we can go here and see 32-bit CPU, right? 32-bit wide registers. These are all the explanations about the different registers and what they do. This stack pointer, that stack pointer. I believe it was a MIPS CPU, so PlayStation 1 CPU R3000 CPU. Okay, 33 megahertz, Carey.
Okay.
Sold 100 million of these things.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy? Very, very popular device. And now you can emulate it on your phone.
No kidding. That was my thoughts exactly. It's just amazing what they could do.
Yeah. Look at this.
To that same .NET portability question, you could run this with Xamarin.
That would be interesting. So that's a really great point. So we talked about Blazor, but you're absolutely right. It would be interesting to see, could you put this on a tablet? Could you do whatever? It all comes down to Carey's point, keeping the when you touch the screen, when you touch the sound, when you touch the disk, when you touch, things that are physical have to be abstracted away.
Right. That provider model you were suggesting, Carey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is a little bit dense and difficult to read, but when you get deep into it, you start to follow it. But I was not able to go and do that too much. The other thing I was going to show you was this. Check this out. So I'm going to run it again. And again, this is the Windows. This is the .NET Core version. I'm going to hit Tab. Okay, so this is a secret key that he has in there. What he's doing here is he's showing you the textures in video memory. So you're looking, I'm going to just say outside the screen, right? Like you're talking about like off screen and double buffering. There's the word crash right there as a piece of video memory that one would pull in, right? So there you go. So I just switched. Now look, these are the pieces of the island.
Oh my gosh.
The textures of the island. So now let's go, see? So I can look at the island, but the textures aren't changing. Now I can't remember. There you go. So now we're loading the level. So you should be there. See the numbers down here? Here, let me zoom in on that. See?
Now, what's the coloring? Why is it?
See this MPH? That's just because he hasn't applied a palette. It's just the raw bits in the VRAM. Okay. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, and again, if I'm getting this wrong, Carey, tell me. But as I understand it, the palette is separate from simply the bits that describe the shape of the objects, but he's holding the entire level there. And if you see where it says you got MPH, you got the numbers down there, like anything that you would need. So like this question mark must be here somewhere, right? But it's probably on the side of a texture. So somewhere in here is that box side and these X's, but it's difficult to see. But he was probably doing this to figure out how to align this memory. And if we go back over to his GitHub.
Thank you, Hugo, for sharing the GitHub.
There you go. Textures, color lookup tables, and display buffers. Interesting?
Nice.
That's
Again,
awesome.
yeah, it's awesome. And then we saw, of course, that TTY and debugging stuff that we could potentially remove. Now, to who's our friend on the chat there who was saying that they're having their intern watch this? Because now I'm paranoid that there's interns watching this.
That was Nothing Else Matters.
That's very nice. Thank you for that. So this is not what typical enterprise software is, right? Like this is not text boxes over data, but I appreciate that we all appreciate that there's value in poking around at this stuff, you know, looking at the code that this gentleman went, which is sometimes naive. And when I say naive, I don't mean that in an insulting way. It's like he got it to work. That's the naive implementation. It's the simplest possible thing you could do.
Yeah.
Make it work once, write tests if you want to, write test beginning, make it work, and then make it fast. I think it's amazing that if you throw this much processor power and a really clean CLR at the thing, we can get almost 200 frames a second. I bet you he could easily look for, run a profiler on it and find out where it's spending its time, and it could get even faster. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Well, I know that he says he's looking for an internship, but honestly, any organization out there that just sees the ambition behind this, I mean, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. So not to advertise for our friend too much, but I'll just put this is who he is. He's in Barcelona, Pedro Cortez, and he's a student at this institute. So you go and check him out on LinkedIn. And if you forget his name, find me on the Twitter. And actually, someone sent me recently a .NET Flame Graph profiler, I want to say.
Oh.
.NET Flame Graph profiler.
While you're looking for that, there's a question from Hugo in the chat room asking about your T-shirt.
Oh, this is from Black Panther. Remember M'Baku, who was going to kill and eat the Black Panther? And then he laughs and he goes, we are vegetarian. This is from M'Baku's Vegetarian Cafe in Jabari Wakanda.
But anyway, I could see that emulator running on this later.
Oh yeah, see, is that your project now? You're gonna go and make that happen for us?
Yeah, we could probably just do that this afternoon because it's got IoT Core on here, so should be just pick up and move it over.
Well, but IoT Core, you're running Windows 10 IoT Core. That only supports XAML though and UWP. So
that's true. I need a provider.
You need a provider, so I think you need to blit. Maybe you could just do what I did, make a XAML, an empty window, and then blit into its bitmap. Was it Perfview, Speed Scope? So we could do some. I don't know if I've got. What version is this? Is this Community? Yeah, this is Community. I don't know what kind of debugging or profiling I could do. Performance Profiler.
There you go. So is that JT Phils in the chat room asks, when you say naive, do you mean a more proper way to do the GPU implementation in this project?
I mean, like, let's go back to my example of my stupid thing that I made 15 years ago, right? So it is naive doesn't mean uneducated or it just means simplest possible thing you can do. So if someone says that this code is a naive implementation, it means it's naive in that it doesn't know what else could go wrong and what else is around it. It hasn't covered all bases. You know about the 80-20 rule, right? A naive implementation usually covers the 80%, rule, 80% of the stuff you need to do took 20% of the time. So then you can go and say, hey, I built this CPU, but I feel like the multitasking is naive.
Yeah.
Meaning that, you know, there are bugs there. So when I made this little virtual CPU in C# many years ago, like my virtual memory implementation was done as like a series of lists. It was extremely naive and simple. And I'm sure that there are edge cases and off by one errors and potential ways to mess up. And the way I survived, the way that you can make a naive implementation work is by just testing the hell out of it. And then if you have that group of tests, then later on, you can go and then improve it. And if you've got the that parachute that the tests provide you, that ability to be like confident in your code. Like if you don't feel awesome about your code, test the heck out of it. Just wrap it in a comforting blanket of tests. I like that Carey's nodding because I feel like I'm being agreed with, right? You wrap it in a comforting blanket of tests, and then you can change it without fear. Yes. I would be like, oh, well, maybe a list is done. Maybe I'll use an array. Or maybe I'll do this. And then you run the test, and you go, oh, it still works. But if you still don't feel confident, add more tests.
Goran and Steve in the chat room say, yes, it's a minimum viable product. This is the naive, just minimum viable. It just works. You're right. All kinds of things to make it better.
Well said. That's a very good way to phrase it. Thank you for that. Absolute minimum. Okay, so I just did profiling while we were doing that. And now it's thinking about it. And Visual Studio's chewing in the Visual Studio standard collector. Cool. My little machine's working hard now. Profiling is definitely something, especially profiling a multi-100 frames a second game or whatever, is definitely going to work your computer hard. Right now it's all disk.
Yeah.
40, yeah, see?
Well, okay, so there's an optimization that can be done to this, right?
Oh, hang on.
Let's stop.
Here we go. CPU. Now this is interesting, though. So it's not seeing frames per second, which implies that the way that we're outputting, what do you think here, Carey? It feels like the profiler doesn't know we're printing to the screen.
Wondering if it had something to do with it being the background.
You're right. Yeah. And see how it says composition thread and UI thread? However we're printing it out to the screen is not something that's being picked up on. Additionally, this is also worth pointing out. Oh, I was in release mode. That's probably the biggest issue. Because see, it's just disk and garbage collection. So that was not a valid profile. Let's try again. Oh, interesting. Select release for more accurate results. It's been a while since I've used this tool. I usually use a different one. Well, I want more than this, though. I need more than this.
While you're searching for that, I want to thank the 16 raters that just joined us from the Code Rush channel. That's our friend Mark Miller, who just rated us. Welcome, raters. My name's Jeff Fritz, and this is Carey Payette just below me, and Scott Hanselman just above us. And we're talking about how you can use C# to build and render this, in this case, a PlayStation game with WinForms.
So this is interesting. Here's CPU usage. Of course, this is all just the function body of the do-it function, which makes sense. Looks like the work is happening in load 32, which makes a lot of sense. You can see that it's basically spending a ton of time in there. And load, and then GPU is loading. So this little chunk of code here that's just taking an address and then doing just a ton of work. How would we like go and optimize this giant if-else statement and figure out where's all the time being spent? Because it's all being spent right here, right? 3% of the time's there, and everyone's using it. The GPU's using it, CPU's using it, and then we've also got back over here. If I saw write 32, but I feel like, yeah, the DMA and the GPU are where all the work is happening. And it's all of this stuff. It's all these all this bit shifting and stuff like that. This is not, I mean, there's not a lot of optimization at this point you could do with that. I think it would be interesting to go and look at the GPU options and figure out if you switch to DirectX or something like that, or to their provider.
Well,
is that better code than he thinks it is?
Is that game being read off disk, or is it being loaded in memory and being searched across?
Well, so the CD-ROM is fake. Okay?
Right.
So he actually is kind of clever here. He made a CD and a CD-ROM, right? Because the CD and the CD-ROM are different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he boots up the CD by basically describing the and this is really cool because it's really very object oriented. Like, this is the characteristics of a CD in the world of PlayStation 1. He in the constructor of the CD, he says it's over there, and it's just a literal binary dump. And he uses a system.io.binary reader. He doesn't load it all up into memory, it appears. He just runs around in there seeking, see? So
right.
He is literally seeking through that disk as if it were, he could put it in memory and seek it in memory, but he appears to be using the file stream.
Mm-hmm. Could convert that to a memory stream, right?
That's a very good point.
Load it up, and he's got the same
here,
API.
Yeah, so this is, what is this? How big is this file? So you're looking at 600 megs, right?
It's not terrible.
Well, so let's think about this. What do you think, Carey? Do we just read the whole thing into memory and just say, let's go? So we got reader, read bytes. You see, look what he's doing. This is interesting. He says read this sector, and I assume that's location, and he returns a byte array. If we hold this entire thing in memory, what is the relationship between binary reader and memory? Is there a memory reader?
Yeah.
Memory stream, rather?
Yep, memory stream.
And memory stream has a seek.
Oh, yeah. Has the same API, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The same interface?
Yeah.
I mean, as an experiment, just to take the file system, take the drive out of the mix.
You would. Can you go and say memory stream, memory equals new memory stream, and then just hand it? You can hand it a buffer. How do I get a file stream from a buffer? How do I get a memory stream from a file stream?
Right, can you do a file.open.read all bytes?
You could do copy to. Is it reader.read all bytes? But we should be doing something like this.
Filestream.copy to says coder 999.
Yeah, like this. So reader, he's using reader for a second, and he's using stream. If we change file stream to memory stream, keeping in mind I know nothing about what I'm doing here, so both of you please.
Sure, we're just trying to use the same stream API, just in memory.
Well, it's like, okay, well, like, you have to ask yourself, like, what's cheap right now? And let's assume that memory is cheap, is what I'm hearing you say.
I don't see any red dots down the side.
Yeah, well, we'll ship it then, clearly. Let's ship it immediately. Now, this is stupid.
Welcome to live coding on Twitch, Scott.
Yeah, touche. So it is worth pointing out, though, let's think about this. When we speak about naivete in this context, what we're doing is, it's kind of silly because we're simulating a CD. This CD has now become a caching CD, right? Without us telling anyone. If you think about the single responsibility principle, this memory stream is now being held in the context of the CD. And here, we are actually going to be seeking within a memory location and returning the bytes we want at that location.
I assume it's only initialized the once.
Right. And this is where things are kind of goofy. You see that? Reader.read bytes is different than stream.seek, because this is kind of interesting, because he's got the underlying reader.
Hugo has
we don't have that anymore. Why did this compile?
You didn't.
This binary reader still exists.
Right.
Now it's not going to compile.
And Hugo's suggesting a slight change to your definition of the memory stream. Say new memory stream file.read all bytes inside the constructor.
That's nice and clean. Okay. Yeah, that removes that need. Okay, so then here's the question. They put that in a memory stream, and then here they're saying reader.read bytes. That was pulling it off the disk, but now we've got this memory stream. Can you go and say stream.copy to destination buffer size? How do I get this many bytes? Because here we're saying seek, and then it's saying to a location and then read these bytes. I've seeked, and now I want to grab out the next X bytes.
And you want to copy it into the byte array. So yeah, you're going to do a copy too, aren't you?
Yeah, but it's saying read. This is where, by the way, span of t is really what they need to be doing.
Oh my gosh.
Right? This is very much a span of t type situation. Because we're copying, we've got a 600K or 600 megs rather, pardon me, 600 megs of CD-ROM in memory now, and we're going to go and make a copy of not all of it, but just the bytes, the number of bytes to read. So what I was pointing out here is we need to go from this stream reader to read, which is going to be the buffer.
Yeah, the buffer you want to read it into.
Doesn't feel right.
Well,
writes the data to the buffer. So I do it like, oh yeah, you have to do it like this. Ew.
Yeah, you need to declare.
I don't know how many.
First.
But do I need to make the buffer first, or I need to go and? Is that an out parameter? But see, I don't know the offset.
It's
the offset is up here.
Well, the offset is 0 because you've seeked to it. I kind of agree with what Will Bennett is saying. Just put the reader back and it'll just work because you can run the reader against the memory stream.
Oh, okay. No, that's a good point. Okay, so let's go back down here. This is why that binary reader is a very convenient thing. So he's suggesting this.
There you go.
So that binary reader is sitting on top of that memory stream.
Yep.
Oh, Steve O is pointing out that none of this is interesting. They want to talk about fonts, so I apologize. We should do that
we'll
too.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Okay. I do have to have lunch with my wife in 30 minutes, though.
Yep, and we've got a .NET Conf meeting.
We do? Do I?
I do.
Okay.
The .NET Conf people.
Is this still running? Oh, my goodness. We should ship this immediately.
But is it faster?
Well, let's go and switch it into release mode and find out. So, to be clear, I also want to point out that, naive again, it's about trade-offs, right? So I'm going to assume when we run this, we're going to see it be 600 megs bigger in memory.
Yeah.
So then the question would be, how big was it before? I don't think we checked. I don't think we're going to see frames per second on this one. Do you? Like, I don't know if this is going to make it faster. It means you see that it's not hitting the disk at all.
Nope. Disk is, and it's 600 meg.
0. Okay, so let's do this. Let's put it back the way it was. Okay. I guess that's all we did, didn't it?
Yeah.
Seemed like more at the time.
Yeah, the stream up top is a memory stream. The class scope variable.
Isn't that funny? You ever have that thing where you sit there and do code for like 10, 15 minutes, and then you're like, oh, I did this and I did that. You did one line. Yeah, Hugo is pointing out, and we do realize that rendering is not changing the disk. We're trying to give it less to do, was the point here.
Right. Make sure that the load off of disk wasn't causing a delay.
Now look at the memory. See?
Yeah, 22 meg.
22 meg. So we did successfully do what we said we were going to do. Now, if we start the game, I'm going to assume a little bit of disk access, but it would only happen at the end of each level. So it's not necessarily going to be because Crash Bandicoot focused on loading the whole level into memory. So it depends on whether you want to, spend 600 megs to hold that thing in RAM. But when we talk about naive, right, like that's one of the things to think about.
Will Bennett has a suggestion. You could probably just change that CD type to a stream.
The base class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all it's doing is stream operations.
Right. Yeah, there you go. So Hugo says, "Oh, well, then this is the thing, right? Like, go and play with this. You know, that could be a command line flag, right? You know, / cache, or / I don't care about memory. You know, whatever, or / rather. Cool. Now, yeah, so that's yummy.
Yeah. So the other question we got here was about the terminal. Windows terminals undergoing a bunch of big changes here.
Yeah. Let me drop out of this because now I'm obsessed. And I'll show you a couple of things that are going on. So here's the command prompt. This is the one cmd.exe.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's PowerShell. Here's Ubuntu. All of these, you have to, we, the community, y'all, people, need to understand is there's a difference between a shell and a console. This is the console host, or what is literally conhost.exe. So the thing that prints out to the screen when PowerShell says do it or echo hello is conhost.exe, and it's very, very old. It was updated when Windows 10 came out, but conhost is not the same thing as a shell. All of those share the same shell. And the way you can tell that is that this is called the Chrome, the title bar here. And if you click in the upper left-hand corner and you go Properties, I think we've all seen this before, right?
Oh.
We've probably all gone in here. Like, this dialog box is owned by conhost. And if you're old enough to remember, there was a time when we could not even have TrueType fonts in the console conhost. The Windows terminal and other terminals like it, whether they be con-TTY or con-emu, are reinventions or reimaginations of the terminal. Now, there's a thing called con-PTY, which is called the Windows Console pseudo-console, the Windows pseudo-console, con-PTY.
Okay.
And this, you can go and read about this, and it talks about this pseudo-console out in the time of Grace Hopper that separates the shell and what it does from the terminal and its responsibilities. Does that make sense? Here's a little horrible pro tip for you, my friends. If you decide to go like this, it is faster if you make it smaller or minimize it, because the console currently is basically waiting. The shell is waiting for the console to paint. So people who have a lot of log spew know that they can just minimize the thing; it'll run like 10% faster.
Just like we were seeing with the Crash Bandicoot log?
Exactly. That should not be a thing, right? We don't want that to have gotten faster. So here's the new Windows terminal, which I have added in mine. PowerShell, PowerShell Core, Ubuntu, Visual Studio 2019, which we'll talk about, and then this one, PowerShell but Magic. And he just sits there and does that over and over again while you do your job.
I can help with that. 1 second. Stand by. There it is. So nice. Magical.
All right. This one here, by the way, is new. Visual Studio 2019 PowerShell. Because if you've been using Visual Studio for a long time, you might type the word developer. You get the developer command prompt, which takes you to here. And that gives you something where you've got like MS Build in the path. It gives you a sophisticated path where it prepends. This is a good thing, in fact. It prepends things like the .NET Framework and build tools. So if you want a Visual Studio Smart path, you run the developer command prompt. That has been DOS for a very, very long time. So we encourage them to add a developer PowerShell preview. So now I can come out to PowerShell, but I have all of the Visual Studio stuff. So when I wanted to go and build Project PSX, I could just go and run MS Build. Pahandav says Windows Terminal now with VT100 codes. You joke, but in fact, very, very true. So if we go and search for Hanselman BBS console, I actually talk about running BBS door games in this way, where you can have ANSI. And there's a lot of ANSI support now in the console. Where's my ANSI? And I went and built this app called Overkill, which is a legendary ANSI, it's like imagine Doom, except it's multiplayer and done entirely in like text.
In ANSI.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's kind of stupid. And then if you go and find like an ANSI, go and search for ANSI art. You can go and download ANSI art, right? This is the kind of stuff that we did back in the day, right? So that would be some ANSI. So then you have to go and find the actual codes for that, and then download it, and then you go and say type. So having those codes available to you will allow you to do all kinds of fun things. And also we support emoji now as well, which is cool. Yeah. Hugo Dahl points out that there was an ANSI, the paint.net of my generation was an application that was called The Draw.
Yes.
Remember The Draw?
Oh no.
You go and you would literally go and draw ANSI like a paint application.
Yeah.
Good times, good times. Okay. We also have put out a new font. Hugo is suggesting that I do this. Let's see if it works. That did not work. Why did you think that would work, sir? That is not nice at all. Why is that not working? That's supposed to show weather. Something's not set. Some
parameter for
console. So here's a
width.
conversation about it. This Rich Turner owns the console. Here we go. Since adding curl to Windows 10, curl was added into Windows 10 in, it is an encoding issue here. It was added to Windows 10, so you can actually, and you can confirm that, by the way, by going out into DOS, but not DOS, and typing where. And you can see which curl you're using. Curl was added. That's an encoding issue. And he's saying, yeah, curl's not behaving, and there's actually known issues, not in Microsoft, but on curl itself. So curl curl's not opening Unicode. That's what it's supposed to look like. Okay? So what he's done over here is he's gone and he said, change code page 65,001.
Hey.
So let's do that again. See? So that is what's called a code page issue, because it's not really returning Unicode. It's recording this 65,001 code page, which I think is UTF-8. Yeah, the Windows code page identifier for UTF-8.
Very
so
cool.
Now they're arguing about maybe we set the code page to Unicode by default. So that's an interesting conversation. And this is an important thing to know about, because this is what we just got, right? And here's it with Unicode and VT enabled. Now look here. See, they're saying, please revert this change because it messes up my font. So you have to think about these things. UTF-8 output doesn't restore font. So a lot of conversations happening. You can't just break the world. But good, that's a great example of like the kind of cool stuff you can do when you support all these different code pages. So, okay, so going back into here, which is our profiles.json. This has got key bindings, which is this part. I'm going to close that. And profiles. These are all different profiles. So here's, for example, PowerShell core. I've got a color scheme that's named. I've got a font, Fira Code, which is a ligature style font. And then I've named it and I've given it an icon. So if we look at my Ubuntu, it's using the color scheme Ubuntu Legit, and then it's calling WSL-D for distribution and passing in the name of the Ubuntu that I want. Worth, again, pointing out, you can have as many of these as you do want. You can see here I've actually got 3 different Linuxes on my machine, all right? And then the color Ubuntu Legit is down here. And I suppose some people might want that. Nope, I reached the character limit. Sorry, friends, take a screenshot. Now, there's other folks that have done this, which is iTerm, which is on Mac. There's a thing called iTerm 2 color schemes, where you can go and say, hey, I really like these color schemes. I want Lovelace as my color scheme, right?
Yeah.
So what you can do, and this may not work because some changes have occurred recently. I'm going to go and I'm going to take the MS Terminal Settings module, which is a PowerShell module. I'll install that if I haven't already. Okay, it's saying administrator rights. One of the things that the current terminal does not do well is administrator. Okay. Do you want to do that? Yes. Installing, unzipping. Bloop. Okay. And then I can go and I can do this. So I'm going to take this chunk of code here. I'm going to put it in Notepad because we're going to need to make it. Actually, let me put it in Notepad too because Notepad sucks.
Oh, come on, man.
All right. I think it was called Lovelace. So I'll put in Lovelace. Lovelace. Yes, I know I could have searched and replaced. I know. Thank you very much for your help.
There's still one on line 1.
You're not going to let me just mess up?
No.
You weren't going to let me fail?
I got your back.
Thank you so much. All right. So let's do, let's think, which one are we going to do? We'll do DOS, but not DOS. We're going to change that one. I say DOS, but not DOS because it's not really DOS. Yeah. DOS, but not DOS. I think that's what it's called. So this is a PowerShell thing that will go and download these iTerm colors, take the format that Mac iTerm understands, import them into the bottom of the profiles.json, then get the terminal and then pipe it through set and then update its color scheme.
Nice.
That's the theory. Might not work.
Make it happen, Captain.
Now, the reason it might not work is that the console recently switched from storing profiles.json in roaming, which was causing people problems because it would you'd add a profile and then find it elsewhere on another machine, and they've switched that to local, so that might be a problem. And then let me go into a format document and save before I'm done. Okay, Let's try it. Is Lovelace not there? So let's go and see if that URL exists.
I was going to say case sensitive.
It probably is. Okay.
Son of a gun.
Thank you, sir. It's always either DNS or case sensitivity, right? Okay, so I'm going to take DOS but not DOS and put it over here. Yep, see?
Nice.
So that updated that automatically. I don't have a colored DLL here. What can I do here to show colors? I don't know what to show. What I don't have any friendly color stuff. But
well, I would say PowerShell PoshGit.
Oh, actually, well, we can do Hugo's thing again.
Oh, the weather.
Where did that go? Oh, someone was asking earlier how I ran the profiler. I ran the profiler by just going up to, I think it was under the debug menu. Where did we run that thing before? There we go. Select, right click. That will fail. CHCP 65001.
Fancy.
Yeah. So the point there is that it updated automatically. You saw that when the file changed, right?
Yep.
If I go down here and say Lovelace, that's now here. Oh, this is worth pointing out too. I bet you, I guarantee you don't know about this, Jeff. If you do, I will be super surprised. So we talk about DOS but not DOS a little bit over here, which is basically command.exe, right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting about command.exe is there's certain things that we all do, and particularly older people, myself being one of them, where I say like rd/s foo, remove directory. Are you a, Carey, are you a PowerShell person, or what's your shell?
I love PowerShell.
Okay, here's a question, true story. I feel sometimes like I only use command.exe to remove directories because I don't know how to do that simple statement in PowerShell. So like if I make a folder on my desktop, right? Like, am I in PowerShell right now? Okay, I'm in PowerShell. Make directory, foo. I can't, I go like this. Like I want to remove the directory /s for subdirectories. How do I remove this freaking directory?
I thought it was remove item.
That's not intuitive. I mean, like, how is that a thing? Remove item, foo.
Tyler gave it to me.
I guess so. I don't know. So what I end up doing is I go CMD and I do it, and then I exit out. That's how lame I am. Okay, so check this out. There are those of us who like our DOS, and there is a very nice gentleman who went and made a thing called Yori that I think everyone on the chat should check out. Rambling Geek says RM foo. Okay, let's try that. Make directory foo. I got to put stuff in there though, because if there's not stuff in there, then it's easy to remove.
Then dash force.
You think it's force? Okay, so RM foo. Default is yes. Well, see, now I'm feeling dumb because you're all showing me that it's easier than I thought. RM and not RD. All right, you all suck. All right. Yeah. All right, so take a look at this here. Malcolm Smith made Yori. It's basically an open source, again, DOS. It's an open source command shell, but it looks and acts like DOS. So if I go back over here and I open up my not quite DOS and I say dir, I get the DOS directory that we're all used to. But if I say sdir, right, I get this nice one.
Okay.
Okay. I can get tab completion that's better than the one on DOS. You get file matching with like globbing. So I could say like dir, I think you can go star dot png comma gif.
Oh, wow.
Right? So the idea is you're in Yori, you're in DOS effectively. Now I also want to point out, so Steve is saying I'm using Commander. Now, no disrespect to you, Steve, I want to point something out. Commander is a console emulator, okay? So remember we talked about the difference between a console and a shell. Commander is a console, right? They've added Clink, which takes the native command line shell and then adds some stuff. So when you say when Steve says I'm using Commander, is Yori better? This is command line DOS plus Clink inside of Commander's shell. This is Yori as a command replacement inside of the Windows terminal shell. Make sense? It's subtle, but you got to know your shells. Also, Yori is cool because you can do this and get rich text copy.
Oh, it's going to preserve the colors and things?
Isn't that what you want?
Maybe.
See?
Fancy. Steve is asking for you to repeat the shell and terminal comparison.
All right, let's talk about this. This is great. Thank you for being a good audience member, Steve. I appreciate it, because good audience members move you forward. This will be my last thing before I run to lunch, okay?
Yeah, I was going to say we should wrap up.
So a shell is input, output, scripts at the command line. Example shells: Bash, PowerShell, PowerShell Core, Yori, command.exe, what I would call DOS. Back in the day, 4DOS, or command plus Clink. Console paints the stuff. The actual thing that paints the stuff owns the Chrome.
The actual window.
Okay. Responsible for talking to the keyboard. You can mix and match consoles. Examples of consoles: Commander, ConEmu, Windows Terminal, ConHost, which you never see if you run just this default. We'll say that's the default. Okay. Hyper.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one.
Terminus. I could go and run Terminus. Where's Terminus? Got so many screens. So here's another alternative. What is this? An alternative shell? No, it's an alternative console. So here's Terminus. It's very attractive. See? Go and run PowerShell. It's running PowerShell. Now, in the old days, ConEmu and Console 2 and Console Z. God, you ever just start talking, Jeff, and you're just like, how do I know this stuff? How am I literally pulling this out of thin air? I have no idea. Okay, so this is me choosing one console, one shell. So mix and match your consoles and your shells. The console's UI, the shell is the backend processing. Thank you, Nexus. All right, I got to run. I know you got to run, my friend.
We need to wrap this up. Thanks so much for joining us, Scott. This was great.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, and
crap! I'm so sorry. I want to point something out though, and I know you have to go, but I just got a text message from the folks at Wilderness Labs, and I didn't. We've been talking about emulators and stuff, and I did not show their stuff. Can you bring me back up?
There we go.
I apologize. I promised them that I would talk about their product very, very briefly, because I'm going to show this a little bit later. But this is not a microprocessor like a Raspberry Pi, but a microcontroller. And what this is this is a microcontroller that runs .NET.
Oh, wow.
Literally, and I just got beta 3. They have a Kickstarter that's already done, but you'll be able to buy this soon. It's real .NET. It's .NET standard on a microcontroller. And I just got their beta 3, so I can actually write the code in Visual Studio and then right-click from Visual Studio and deploy to the microcontroller, which is,
Sweet.
I think, yeah, see, you're digging this. And you're into this now, right? Like, you heard about this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. This is
I heard about it at, like, Today I Learned.
Today I Learned?
Yeah, this is awesome, though.
So I just wanted to point that out, Jeff. I apologize for going over your time. I know you have other things to do, but very, very briefly, I still have my screen open. I'm just going to move Visual Studio over here. I want to support small and medium-sized businesses here, so I wanted to just show you this here. That's how easy it is. Make a class app, input digital output ports, and then in this case here, look, blinking lights.
That's
like you know
C#,
you know this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Makes
great.
Sense? So if you're a .NET programmer, know about this stuff. Raspberry Pi, microcomputer. But if you want something to run for weeks on a battery, microcontroller. Single task. If you have questions about this, my friends, go on to Twitter and talk to our friends at Wilderness Labs, and they'll answer any of your questions. These folks right here. They remember the NetDuino?
Yes,
These are the NetDuino people.
I've got one right over here.
See? So go and talk to our friends. Here's what they look like. They're gorgeous. So the question on the chat there, what kind of ports does it have on it? All the ports, everything good and wonderful is on it. It's got a lot. The specifications are all online, and I do have to run, and I apologize for going over there, Jeff. Put a link, it says. Put a link. Well, I mean, come on. You guys put a link. There you go. There's your link. So demanding.
Very cool.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Scott. We appreciate you joining us.
Hey, I appreciate you. I didn't realize that we could talk for 2 hours about random stuff. I see why you do this all the time.
It's so much fun.
Well, we're going to talk about all this stuff and more at Dev Intersection.
We are. Absolutely. So, all right. Take care, Scott. We'll see you.
All right.
And Carey, that's a wrap. That was a quick 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, looking at the pins on the board, looks like it's even got I2C, SPI. It looks pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for watching. All the folks out there that are in the chat room, make sure you click the follow button. We'll be back again next week. Next week, I'll be broadcasting from San Diego, and I'm going to have Zoiner joining us, right? And it'll be just Zoiner and I, and we're gonna talk more IoT, more AI stuff with him live just outside TwitchCon. It's a very full week next week. I've got TwitchCon, I've got .NET Conf, and Virtual DEVintersection, Carey.
Yes, I was just going to say, it's like, I know Virtual DEVintersection butts right up to TwitchCon.
It does. Now, at DEVintersection, you've got a couple sessions, and you're doing a workshop, right?
Yeah. So I've got a session on IoT Central.
Okay.
A longer session on Azure Sphere.
Okay.
And then I have an IoT workshop where we get hands-on with some equipment. So Raspberry Pis, water level sensors, and so on. And then now being added to it, there's a lot of smart people out there, and it's been now extended to 2 days where we start adding AI and ML.
Awesome.
To basically what we've learned hands-on with the hardware and learning about a lot of the infrastructure behind IoT systems in Azure and bringing it forward and adding AI and ML to it to actually use that information. Because a lot of people, we like to focus on, well, here's the cool thing, here's the sensors, let's get the data up there, but it's what you do with the data and how you apply it to really benefit the world, beyond that.
Oh my gosh, yes. And you said you're doing a live stream a little bit later, aren't you?
Yeah, I definitely could. I think I got really motivated to try to do a UWP port of that PlayStation.
So, Carey is. Let me drop a link to your Twitch. There it is in the chat. And we'll be back next week, friends. Thanks so much, Carey. This was great. This was a lot of fun today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And you have a .NET Conf session, don't you?
Yes, I do. It's a little bit shorter Azure Sphere introduction, so a good overview.
Very cool.
So people can get an idea of what's out there, what it brings to the table, whether it's right for them.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. And to all of you out there, we'll hope to see you next week. Click that follow button. We'll see you next week right back here for another Virtual Dev Intersection. We'll see you.
Bye. Thank you.